Alright, hey true believers, thought I'd do sort of a quick video here, quick little episode, and focus on some covers that I own that I particularly like. Someday when I'm feeling, more ambitious, I'll do, like, my favorite covers, period. Obviously I don't really own those. Some of them I might, like, own within, within a collection, but that doesn't really count. You want to have an individual issue to say you actually own the cover. And, yeah, so someday when I'm more ambitious, maybe I'll look up some of them, on the internet and show you just the pictures at least, and, and just talk about some of my favorite of, comic book covers from over the years. And, but I still wanted to focus on ones that I actually own and can show you, and it is a little underwhelming. I came up with 8, just, I don't know, 8 seemed like a good number. 10, after really thinking about it, two of them wouldn't have felt like they belonged here, but then again, you probably look at these and say, what's so great about any of them? And again, yeah, I don't really own any fantastic or famous covers that immediately come to mind, that people who know comic books might think of. I don't own those. Maybe someday I'll work on it. So I'll just start here. And, okay, so this is Wolverine Origins #1. Let's get a good look at it. I always, never give you a good shot, or I pull back too quickly. I'm still not sure how well you're seeing this, or if this is too close or not close enough, or what. But as you can see, this is a fairly recent comic, as most of these are. The art is done by Steve Dillon. What's interesting about this is, of the many, many, many covers, of course, out there with Wolverine on it, you can't really say this one is particularly memorable or even particularly unique, I guess. But of the Wolverine covers I own, it's easily my favorite. What's interesting is that Steve Dillon, who's doing the art here, also does the art within, and I don't really care for the art within very much. And I think that might even be one of the factors that contributed to me not continuing on with the series. Believe it or not, I only bought #1. It didn't keep going, even though I remember there's a cliffhanger with Super Soldier Nuke shown at the end there that certainly had me interested. And I do regret not collecting this for at least a little longer. But anyway, very nice work by Steve Dillon here. Again, of all the covers of Wolverine, even if you're making a top 10 list of best covers for Wolverine, I don't even know if this will crack it, but it's one I own and one that I like. Moving on from there, we'll do my favorite artist currently in comics is definitely David Finch. You've heard me babble on about him and gush, and this is part of the New Avengers run, which he was on for the early part, and I picked this because this is Ronin. I guess it's supposed to be Maya Lopez, the Echo character from Daredevil, because that's who starts out as Ronin. If you read this run, you'll find more characters getting involved and taking on the Ronin persona and the costume. Of course, that is a David Finch cover, and this is part 1 of the arc known as Ronin. Brian Michael Bendis, of course, wrote every single issue of this, but the artists would change. None would be as good as David Finch. That's how I feel. He's over at DC now doing fantastic work. I am buying his Batman series basically solely for his art. Right now that would be Batman. I guess it's just called The Dark Knight. So again, I really like the character Ronin, and that's just a very nice, simple shot. Okay, so you're going to notice another thing, banding all these together, well not all of them, but they're going to see some similarities. So this is the first of several Moon Knight covers. That shouldn't surprise you. Now this is by Bill Sienkiewicz, or I'm sorry, I'm sure I'm saying his name wrong, and I've tried, Sienkiewicz, but I'm sure you know who I mean. He's a very celebrated artist, specifically from Marvel, although he's done lots of other great work since. And really, Moon Knight is what put him on the map. This is his cover. In the 2006 Moon Knight series that I had collected, at the end of #1, writer Charlie Houston wrote a little essay about how he got involved in writing comics and also his history with them when growing up. And oddly enough, he wound up writing Moon Knight, which was one of the comics that really meant a lot to him growing up. And he recalls a story about hanging out in his friend's room, and his friend owned a run of the current Moon Knight series. This is around 1980, 1981. And this was the first ever Moon Knight that Charlie Houston read, because he was so intrigued by this cover. I can't remember the exact words, but he said something like, you know, you have this dirty, almost diseased-looking city in the background, and then standing in the foreground, a hero who might just as soon burn that city to the ground as save it. And I think that's a really good summation. I love covers like this. Actually, in the Essential Moon Knight volumes, I think for volume 2 or possibly 3, this is the cover they use. It's just great black and white stuff. Doesn't take any more explanation from me. Okay, so that's one of several Moon Knights I have here. Here's another interesting one. This predates even that, although again, this is Bill Sienkiewicz doing the art, although with help from Klaus Janson, there's a name I'm sure you know, and Steve Oliff and Bob Larkin. Now this is Marvel Preview, a magazine style, as you can see in the Silver Age size. This is from the late 70s, shortly after Moon Knight's first appearance in Werewolf by Night as an enemy, when Doug Moench had realized there was potential in the character to do something with. So Moon Knight hadn't landed his own series yet, but he became a prominent character in the current issues of Marvel Preview. And I think this cover speaks for itself, how interesting it is and how cool it looks, and I'm really glad to own this. This is the only issue of Marvel Preview I own. There's others I could have bought that I'll get maybe sometime, but for obvious reasons I was drawn to this simply for Moon Knight. So within it's a black and white magazine, so you wouldn't see Moon Knight really showing up again in color until his own series started a couple years later with Bill Sienkiewicz again. Klaus Janson would of course go on to great fame and success doing the ink on Frank Miller's Daredevil run. I think it might be fair to say that Klaus Janson, who of course is a good artist too and has done lots of drawing, you know, I think at the time he might be one of the more famous inkers, one of the inkers who's actually more known. You know, it's usually writer-artists, you don't get into colorists and inkers and all that, but Klaus Janson is certainly known. Okay, so what else we got? Here's another David Finch, who also, in a serendipitous twist, did the first 8 or 9 issues of that Moon Knight series. And I had several to pick from. This is the one I came up with. Just a simple thing, Moon Knight crouching in the rain. I just think it's another good summation of what the character is like and what he's about, and how he's sort of street level and dirty. There, you can see his spiked knuckles there, and yeah, not just the cover, but within the art is done by Finch, and it looks fantastic. It looks wonderful. I was really lucky, really fortunate, and so was anybody who liked Moon Knight, and so was Moon Knight in particular, that that relaunch of the series featured such a great artist with such wonderful art. Okay, so a similar cover I have to that is actually a Daredevil, although it's not nearly as detailed because it's done by Alex Maleev. And speaking of Daredevil famous runs, we had the Frank Miller one. Well, perhaps the second most famous is Brian Michael Bendis in his first extended work in the main Marvel universe. I think he was doing Alias around the same time, with Hungarian, I think he was Hungarian-born, I'll check that if I'm wrong, artist, Alex Maleev. So it's not very detailed, it's similar to the Moon Knight, but again, I think this is a great way of summing up everything that Daredevil's about, just gritty and dark, and full of drama and pain, and all those things that Daredevil's so great at. Angst, I suppose, to a certain degree. So here he is in the dirty, wet city, just staring through the rain, crouching. And that just really strikes a chord with me. I've only just really started collecting a lot of Daredevil individual issues. Finally, I don't know why I hadn't years ago, since I always liked Daredevil. I own quite a few trades, and even hardcovers. I've shown you a couple of those. Okay, is that all of them? No, that's not all of them. Okay, so this might not be too special, but this is the first issue, of course, of Watchmen, as you can clearly see, but it's all yellow because it's the 2009 re-release in honor of the movie coming out. And I got really excited because I thought they were going to re-release all 12 issues, and they didn't. This is the only one. But I don't own any of the individual issues. I will someday. They're not too hard to find. They're a little pricey, but they're still worth getting. And I guess they're just not a huge priority for me at this point because they're not too hard to find, although those things can change quickly. But of course, that's stellar work by Dave Gibbons, showing the sociopathic vigilante Rorschach. Just wonderful stuff. Really happy to see that. This and Marvel Preview. I think in a lot of my episodes, you can at least faintly make them out. I usually leave them out. They're up in the background there on the bookshelf. And number one, if you want to call it that. It's funny. I had such a I have such an obsession almost with lists. That's why I do Fiverrama and things like that. Even before that, I was just so into lists. Unlike some other people like Ryan, who also likes making lists, usually he likes to present lists and say they're sort of in no particular order unless he had a clear-cut number one. I'm really anal about that. I like making stuff in a particular order, like number 8 is number 8, number 5 is number 5, etc., etc. This is in no particular order, except for the number 1, which I have shown you before in an older episode, but for those who hadn't seen, this is Moon Knight from the Mark Spector Moon Knight series, probably the weakest one with the longest running, and the art here is done by Stephen Platt. You can see my episode for that for more information on Platt, but I will reiterate quickly, just for the hell of it since we're here, and say that Stephen Platt came in sometime in the early to mid-90s into the comic book scene, sort of burst on, and did quite a few things. He also drew this whole entire issue. This issue set me back quite a bit because of his involvement in it, because then Platt did not stick around, moved on to other things, graphic design and so forth, and has not done a comic for years and years, although he apparently, according to people who know him or websites and stuff that I've managed to read, he does maintain an interest in someday returning, and I would like get down on my knees and beg him. I love this cover. It's my favorite cover that I own. So I hope when I look at this, you can actually like see these covers, and I'm not just like jiggling them around, or it's too close or too far or something like that. That you can actually enjoy them, or plainly see them. So I've rambled on. Didn't give a ton of information, but again, I didn't want to do a particularly long episode. This is just wanted to share some of my favorite covers from my collection that I own. Now that I have a decent camera, of course, I do have the option to get behind the camera and show you my collection. Because a lot of people have, I won't say bugged me, have simply asked me about that ever since I got into this, really. It's something that people are really interested in for the most part. It's not something that interests me. I never really watch people showing off their collections because it doesn't seem very interesting to me. But if there's a demand for it, sure, I'll show you my collection. It's probably a little underwhelming, a lot of newer stuff, and a lot of my older stuff isn't even that old, and you might be confused by some of the stuff that I chose to focus on, etc., but I make no apologies. So yeah, that was fun. Even though I've got exams coming up, I'm still going to try to do another couple episodes this month, and Ryan and I are going to try to do just a little mini marathon for Scream, because we love the Scream movies, and Scream 4... I'm kind of worried about it because I don't know if it's going to be any good. I don't want it to, be terrible and ruin the series. Not that it can ruin the series, but still, I want it to be good. It's very important to me. So I'm sort of excited, sort of get some trepidation there too. But anyway, we're going to do that because it's a short marathon, 3 movies, just me and him, and we'll try to actually give a little more analysis and commentary on the movies instead of the last marathon that we did when we were back in Cape Breton that I'm sure many of you saw. And that was a lot of fun, and it was great because I think after being away for 2 months, I had really sort of stagnated, and I wasn't attracting any new subscribers, which, in the back of my mind is still an issue. And that sort of helped kickstart that a bit. It helped get me some more, I think. So if you're from that, thank you very much. It's great to have you along. It's pushed me over the 150 mark, which is a big deal to me. It might be small to some people, but a big deal to me. So great. I'll see you next time. And either doing that with Ryan or some sort of comic-based episode, most likely. I hope you liked this. I hope you enjoyed this. And I know I sort of ramble a little, even a lot for me, but whatever. That's just sort of the week I'm having, I suppose. So all right, thanks a lot, true believers. See you guys next time. Sidhu Busit. Good dog.